At any rate, it's great to meet you. And before we get into your life in the military and in sales and everything that makes you who you are, I want to know, we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of this pandemic. How did you make it through and survive that time period? And how did it change you?
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, and more so for me, it was difficult because it was a big transition for my family and I. We moved from Arkansas to here in Dallas for work, and that was right at the pandemic at March, uh, March to June-ish area. Um, and I moved here for a job that I took and moved my family in about 4 months. It was 4 months into the job, and they had to eliminate positions, and I was one to be let go. And because I started as a contractor for him, just because I was out of state and so on. And so here I am after in a pandemic. No one has hiring in the certain fashion that I was in at the moment. Um, and so it was very stressful. And so I really don't know how I just, it was the tenacity and the ability to find another role. Thank gosh, I'm a very frugal person and I was able to save up some money. Um, but with a big move, you eliminate a lot of your savings. So anyways, found another position and just kind of got back to work. And I don't know, I had a positive mind frame as I would really say that pretty.
But one of the things I would imagine about being in the military is that there's a lot of scenarios that you have to go through and a lot of adversities. So there's probably a level of you that has a higher acumen, probably to navigate, I would think, something
Yeah,
like that.
I would say so. I think that, and I appreciate you asking that because a lot of times I don't want to bring up the parts of me saying that it's not that I'm better, but you have a different mentality in the
Yeah.
military, and it's a big transition. And when you have to go through so many different changes in civilian world, you kind of react in a military fashion, in a mindset that just enables you to get through whatever steps you're going towards because you have to go one step at a time. And in the military, you have to go one step at a time, plus think about what's, lying ahead. And so I think that mentality really has provided me the ability to have that tenacity of during the times of adversity. Um, and just the strength, I guess you could say, not really physical, but the mental and
Yeah.
emotional strength. And
Yeah.
that's what it takes.
Yeah, I think it's implicit. I used to run a couple computer labs for the YMCA way, way back in the day, and they were in some sketchy areas. And I remember when I was going through the resumes, I really honed in on military experience, because there's a level of that that's just there's a mentality that's different.
It is.
So let me ask you this. Let's get to the brass tacks of what you do on a daily basis. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders, it's career day, all right?
Yep.
And one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do
Yep.
you answer that child?
I lead sales and revenue operations for startups and I don't know, SMBs. There we go.
Okay. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Police officer.
Okay. Me
Yeah.
too. I
Yeah.
grew up watching Chips and
Yeah.
then
Same.
right? I wanted to be there with Poncharelli, and I wanted to do
Yeah.
the whole thing. And then all of it kind of dissipated when I saw the show Cops and I saw what it really
Yes. Exactly. Compared to
Hollywood.
chips, that's a big
Oh
difference.
yeah. 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 It was
Yeah, I
sobering.
agree.
So
Yeah.
take me back in your life to where you were born and raised and what made you get into the military and ultimately what was the driving force for you? When did you know you had that skill for sales? That was your DNA.
Um, quick, are we actually recording right now?
Oh yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I come from jazz radio, so I just no, you're a pro, dude.
okay.
You
My
did that.
apologize.
No, no, you're
Yeah,
good.
the I don't know that I really just said yes. I really have that knack.
Yeah.
I needed a position, a job in early in my career and started out handing out yellow page, phone books. And I was paid per phone book that I handed out. And I think at that point, when I transitioned a little bit more into the advertising sales fashion, I said, hey, there's that ability to make some additional money based upon my efforts. And that's when I said, oh, yeah, I think that I really have this. Um, and so I really pursued it because I knew that being a cop didn't make as much as I really wanted to make. And so I transitioned my mindset into, okay, yeah, I can absolutely go into this field.
Isn't it weird in 2024 that the yellow pages is like an antiquated notion?
Yes, it is so funny just thinking about it because I remember wholeheartedly all of these just a buttload of yellow pages in the back of my truck. And I'm having to go to all these neighborhoods and literally physically put them on their porch and be paid for it. And now you're lucky to find a phone book in the
Yeah.
million-mile radius.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Yeah, it's
Crazy.
wild. I tried sales once when I was in college or getting out. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was with the dude, and I don't know if we were doing like vacuum sales or what, but he was fascinating. And he was ex-military, and he
Yeah.
just kept telling me every reason why the CIA was behind the JFK assassination. He had the whole theory down, but it was just like all of these stories that he put out there, and I'm just like, how do you know this? He's like, oh, I know people. I know what's going on.
That's hilarious.
Because you get characters, you know that when you get in sales, you get these people where it's like, wow, dude, you got stories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've ran into a lot of the older, generations, and they'll sit down and tell you some crazy stories, and it's fun. I think that's the riveting part about sales is you have the ability to go into so many different cultures and ethnicities, just everything, and experience yourself. You can really just kind of fit yourself in for a moment and then be able to take yourself back out. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it totally is. So, who's been a hero for you in your life?
uh I grew up with a very, very rough life. So, I lost my dad when I was two. I don't know that I ever had truly an actual hero. Honestly, and I hate to say this, but myself
Yep.
coming from, the major adversity that I grew up in, for
Yeah.
sure.
So let me ask you this. If you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating and
Yeah.
spend some time with them, who would it be?
Bob Iger. I can't ever
Oh,
say
yeah.
his name.
Yeah.
But he's one hell of a leader and an amazing, futuristic person that can really just identify financials, just truly, in, he embodies everything that I want to be in a corporate leader,
Yeah.
and an executive that hones his skills for a great reason, for sure.
So what was the corner that you rounded where I mean, obviously there was rough things that happened early on in your life, but what was that point where you like said, I'm doing this. I got it.
I think there was multiple, but 17, I had the epiphany. Okay, I'm going to go in the military, and so I rounded that corner and made that decision. And then in the military, I had an injury, and I had the choice at that time to either go into my ETS, so be discharged for medical, or change my military specialty. So I rounded the corner to change a MOS, so my specialty, and I made the decision to go reserves as well, um, and to pursue my sales career. And so at that point, that's when I made that pivot and rounded that corner to go into sales, and just kind of went up the ladder.
So the whole idea of sales too is there's a level of being an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It, that's a I've never actually heard that, but absolutely, yeah. You have to love adrenaline and craziness for sure.
So what is it day after day that gets you motivated, that wakes you up in the morning, that motivates you to do the work that you do?
Yeah, that's a darn good question. I'd say just being able to change organizations, change leaders, change assist kind of the up and coming salespeople. I think for me, in my position now as a consultant for businesses, I love this because I don't have to be at one company for a certain amount of time and just stay stagnant. I'm able to go into multiple organizations at one time as a fractional rep executive and help out all of them to really expand their revenue and growth. And I think that's really what drives me right now is really just that ability to wake up and I know darn well that there's going to be something crazy going on during the day.
And the backbone of any economy, like
Yeah.
the American economy, for instance, is all about the startups. It's all about those businesses that are fighting to get into the market. So that has to be huge.
Yeah, I primarily work with startups. That is a big focus of mine. I'd probably say 60 to 70% are startups. And it is, I think, no matter what, there's going to be major competition in the world, but I think that's what drives the economy because there's more and more innovation from that competitiveness. And so absolutely, I think if we just eliminated the startup world or the startup kind of backbone, we'd be back in the Stone Age still. So
Yeah.
absolutely, I think focusing in on startups and allowing them to grow and then be able to penetrate the market is huge.
So in your drive to help these businesses, what's been one of your favorite success stories? One that you turned around that always puts a smile on your face?
Yeah, I love that. So one that I really love is just working with. It was an organization that focused on mobile apps, so distributing mobile apps for various sorts of organizations, and so they started out with two mobile apps, and I think it was five reps, and I came in and assisted them with their revenue growth from the start. It was $500,000 that they couldn't surpass, and I came in for 8 months, and after 8 months, they were at $2 million in the revenue, and it was their model was one-time fees, and I changed their entire structure to allow for them to have ARR and actual MRR. So it was very great. I love that story. I love this organization because you have that major growth in an unbelievably competitive market of mobile apps.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into that 17-year-old version of you that was getting ready to go around that corner. And you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give that young version of you?
Be patient. Be patient. I think be patient is such a huge thing. No matter what scenario you're in. I've 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 always told everybody I'm not a patient person, and I'm not on a lot of things. But I think if I would have allowed myself back then to be patient with a heck of a lot more, I wouldn't have had to go through so many speed bumps that I put my own self in.
So let me ask you a question. This just kind of popped onto my radar here. I just interviewed a musician from Taiwan, and he talked about mandatory military service. And I know
Mm,
that happens in Switzerland. I think
yeah,
in Israel it does. So we were just kind of talking about gun control, and I don't want to get into a rabbit hole. And just for context for everybody out there, I'm in Kansas City, and we just went through.
yeah.
We're the next city to kind of go through the morning of dealing with this. Do you think that maybe if the America adopted that notion of having mandatory service, we would have a better respect and reverence for the history of our country, A, and B, it might cut down on what we're dealing with gun violence?
I love that you brought that up because that's actually a conversation that I had last week. And to answer your question shortly, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it just dawned on me. We were just kind of talking about it, and I'm
Yeah,
thinking, what's going to be really the magic that's going to go in to a plan? And I think that's really it. And I think it would open a lot of people's eyes to what really does happen. Because anytime I read books or hear about either presidents or first ladies that have gone into Walter Reed
yeah,
or dealt in that world, they have an eye-opening experience. They see it from a perspective that will stop people from saying there shouldn't be any extra funding for
Yeah,
veterans, those kinds of things.
yeah,
I think we need to have eye openers about things like that.
absolutely. And I think just as a, I just want to add this portion is that, the VA has so many complications within the VA. I would also love to see, over half of the VA being able to have people who have actually served, because then they have a grasp of
Yeah.
how they should treat us veterans.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely one for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like with sports. All of these coaches played
Yeah,
sports. They've been in that world. And
exactly.
that's why they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
So of all of the things that you've done and overcome and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think I'm just proud of where I am today. You know, quickly saying that I was raised in homeless shelters for a lot of my life, and then kind of transitioning now into a very, decent life. I'm very proud of that, just where I came from, allowing myself to know that I don't have to stay or be in that position that I was in growing up.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the
Mhm.
show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think I'm a very structured. Um, darn, that's a good question. I've never actually thought about that, but I don't know. I think I'm a good human. I think I could still learn some patience on some things, but I think for myself, I would be. Damn, that's a good question. I
You
don't
nailed
know.
it. You got it. And I think sometimes the question begs more, but I think brevity is also good. I think it gets to the core of things. Yeah, this was definitely the therapy question.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult. I'm gonna have to go to my journal next time and then see if I can get to it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey man, if anyone wants to hire you, learn more about you, reach out to you, anything about your world, where do they go?
Yeah, orangecoregroup.com. Orangecoregroup.com.
Right on. Glenn, this has been great, man. Thank you for your story. Thanks for your time. Best of luck
Yeah,
with everything, man.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Take care.